Today we're going to talk about astrological transit of Uranus opposed to natal sun. So you have to look to your birth chart to see what configurations that the two planets make to one another in your birth chart. And that determines a big role and big factor of how this transit will play out. So if in your chart it's a positive alignment, it may be something positive that comes about from this opposition, or it may just be less stressful than it could be. And in your birth chart, if there are stressful aspects occurring, then this could be a very drastic, dramatic time for heavy changes. So, first, the sun rules Leo, and sun is basically the life force. That's the you, that's the ego. And when it's in opposition, which is um, two energies that are on the opposite ends of each other, so they technically don't get along, but they need each other. So when it's opposing Uranus, the planet of restriction, freedom, oh, planet restriction, the planet of freedom and rebellion, then it's a situation where you might come in contact with a move, a great move at this time, or a great breakup. For instance, a divorce, or uh, having a real strenuous relationship with your best friend and there being a separation, there being some sort of breaking away. Like you might, for instance, move somewhere and be that at a great distance from the people who you normally consider your everyday environment. So they're just going to be a drastic change that affects your life or at this time right now. And it's a period that can last for a long time, but after the course of the transit, you learn and you're stronger for what happens because it teaches you to not be so dependent on that very object, which will eventually leave or it will slip right through our fingers to where we can't hold on to it somehow. And it usually leads to, depending on the aspect in your chart, usually leads to a great amount of tension and frustration, being that it's an opposition to the sun, which is your ego. So you might just experience a difficult breakup of some sort, but the transit is supposed to teach you that things can happen, things can go out of order, and you have to rely on yourself. You can't rely on people to do something for you. You have to rely on you to make it happen. People come and go in your life, and that environments change every single day, and you have to be able to adapt to those changes and recognize that the changes is part of life. So hopefully I helped in some way clear up a kind of fuzzy transit because I experienced it and it lasted for several years and I didn't know what the hell it was for the first 3 years. But by the time I got within the last year and a half of it, I was starting to understand, and that's when, for me, because I was born near the end of my sign, which is usually how it happens, is depending on where you were born, the planet slowly affects the sign along the way. So it affects early degrees early on, and later degrees later on. So I was affected about the last year and a half the most, I would say, of the transit, and it was just it taught me a lot about just standing on my own 2 feet and being able to do it by myself and not expect someone not to lean on someone, not to expect help from someone, but it has taught me just to be an individual, to know my own strengths, to find my own gifts, and you know, be my own support system, and learn that, when those things aren't around, that you can do that for yourself. And I think that's what it basically signifies in a situation. Sometimes it may be related to career, finances, parents, but it's all the same thing. It's you have to look to where it's in your chart personally, but it's all the same. It's basically you have to learn how to be free, learn how to accept the changes that come. Sometimes we feel like we want to hold on to certain things that are changing, and that's not what needs to happen. Sometimes you need to just let go and let it happen.